Good evening, campers. It's your camp counselor, Tails here, and welcome back to the Campfire. I'm glad you made it. Tonight's stories are extra creepy, and we don't want you missing any nightmares, do we? The fire's lit, the stars are shining, and the marshmallows are roasting. So sit back, relax, and let the nightmares begin. It's a nice enough night, I suppose, though that may be a bit of a sidetracked thought. I'm writing this all down in my room, and above the clicking of keys and buzzing of cicadas outside, I can hear him rocking in his chair. One slow creak back, pause, followed by one slow creak forward. It's calm, but methodical. It's the same rhythm every single time, without fail. The TV is on downstairs, but I doubt he cares what he's watching. No, it's all about keeping up appearances. Hence, why he works his rocking chair so deliberately. I haven't been home in a while, but had to take some time away from school to come back on family business. That's when I met him, or at least, that's when I knew for sure he existed. As far as I can tell, he's always lived here, in my father's house. When I was a child, I would sometimes see my father going about his business in the house after he had supposedly gone out to run an errand. I'd be playing in my room, or coloring, and from the corner of my eye, I would see him travel down the hall, to his room, or to the bathroom, or maybe to the living room downstairs. When I would go to see, he would be gone. Seeing this would always produce mixed emotions in my adolescent mind. It was a ghost. It had to be. But of my dad? It didn't make any sense. I used to lay awake at night trying to rationalize it. If it wasn't a ghost, it could be a clone, or my dad's evil twin, or something. Maybe he didn't go out at all, and what I was seeing was just my regular old dad. Maybe the whole thing had been dreamed up by a child with a single parent and separation anxiety. At least, that's what I used to think. When I first arrived home the other day, he seemed happy to see me. At least, that's what I could ascertain from the fake smile plastered across the perfect replication of my father's face. He sat idly in his rocking chair, creaking back and forth, as he watched me enter and slowly shut the door behind me. The silence hung thick in the air as we stared at each other, him with his eerily fake smile, and me with my quickening pulse. Hey, Dad. I finally broke the silence. Did you have a good day at work? He nodded, not breaking eye contact. His smile seemed to shake ever so slightly until he lost composure and burst out laughing. Ha! You should have seen the look on your face, he wheezed, in yet another spot-on rendition of my dad. Was that creepy or what? My heart was still racing. I forced a smile. Yeah, Dad, you really got me. Well, come on, he said, gesturing to the couch next to him. Have a seat. Tell me about college, why don't you? Hesitantly, I made my way to the couch, taking note not to sit on the very end next to him. He turned his head to look at me, and I was able to keep him entertained with stories about school. Again, where credit is due, my father had never been to college, so his fascination with my stories would be pretty accurate to the real thing. And after what felt like hours of making Falk's pleasant small talk, I feigned getting a text and diverted my attention. Sorry, Dad, I said. My roommate is calling about something. Can I go take this? He nodded, and I headed for the stairs, taking care not to tear into a sprint like I wanted to. When I reached the second floor landing, I practically scrambled into my room, locking the door behind me. And after several minutes of silence downstairs, I heard him put on the TV and start his clockwork rocking in the chair. I couldn't sleep at all that night. At some point in the evening, he yelled upstairs that he was going to bed, followed by the unmistakable sound of someone crawling up the steps on all fours. He slunk into my dad's bedroom, and the hall light went off not long after. This is how it's been, on and off, ever since I came home. I try to stay in my room as much as possible, but every once in a while, he'll invite me to come downstairs and talk to him. When I run out of things to say, or when I feel like I can't take any more before my heart explodes from fear, I excuse myself to do homework, and he puts the TV on and rocks back and forth in his rocking chair. I don't think that he knows I can hear him when he scuttles around on his stomach downstairs. That must be one compromise to the otherwise accurate impersonation of my dad. Maybe it's how he goes everywhere, but I don't know. I'm certainly not about to ask my dad why he bear crawls and crab walks through the odd hours of the night. Then he would know that I know. Hell, maybe he does know that I know. If he does, well, I can't tell who's working the longer con. Me playing along with his game, or him letting me think that I'm playing along with his game. I've had to isolate the rest of my family for the sake of this little Cold War game that we've been playing. Every once in a while, an aunt or an uncle will call to ask if I need anything, and I'll politely tell them that I need my space. This is between me and him. I don't know how long it will continue for, but this is how it has to be. I can't risk exposing this thing to unfamiliar people. Who knows how he would react? On that note, I'm not sure my family would react any better to seeing him. You see, it's like I said at the beginning of the story. The thing pretending to be my father is very good at his impersonation. If I didn't know any better, I might have even overlooked his strange tics, brushing them off as my father, growing eccentric in his old age. But for all the details that this thing gets right, for all the painstaking efforts he makes to convince me that he is my father, he overlooked one crucial detail that still makes my blood cold to think about. I came back home for my father's funeral. A couple of months ago, I worked for a McDonald's in a small town, somewhere in Canada. I was just hoping to make a few bucks on the side so I could afford a new bike, since I had no way of transportation. I was on the night shift because apparently anything creepy has to happen at night. Most of the story is just me complaining about how I should have just left earlier to prevent all the weird and traumatic shit that happens. So, it was just a normal night, like any other. It was 5 minutes before closing time, and honestly, I felt so shitty that night. It might have been because I stayed up until morning to talk to my girlfriend. My coworker shouted from the back, "Yo, Dan, I'm about to clock out. Make sure you lock the store when you're done, and make sure to lock the front door, alright?" I replied in an unenthusiastic voice, "Alright." My coworker left through the front door, as he always does. Now it was just me, 3 minutes before closing. I finished mopping the floor, then locked the front doors. After a little break, I went to the back to grab my jacket and clock out. That was until I heard a knock on the door. I prayed in my head that it wasn't some nut job getting a Happy Meal at 2 a.m. in the morning. I threw my jacket onto the floor, hoping and praying it was just Jaden coming back because he forgot something. I walked to the counter and took a quick glance at the front door. I now realize that was a very white girl thing of me to do, but don't judge me. I was just pretty fucking annoyed and just wanted to go home. The dude who was at the door was too tall to be Jaden, so I thought to myself, fuck, who the fuck gets McDonald's at 2 a.m.? Something was off though when I was walking to the front door. I felt some weird pressure in my stomach, as if my gut was telling me not to go and open the doors. But You know me. Well, you don't. I just wanted to serve this dude and go the fuck home. As I edged closer to the front, my head out of nowhere started to feel queasy. I kept my eye on the lock while searching my pockets for the front door key. When I did make it to the front door to unlock it, the guy started knocking on the door. I was a little taken aback, but then again, I was still aggravated at the fact that some dude went to McDonald's this late in the morning. So I said, "Damn, hold your fucking horses. You realize I'm about to close, right?" He just kept knocking. "Okay, I get it. I'm unlocking it right now." The knocking got louder. At this point, I was frustrated, so I looked up and shouted, "Dude, I'm unlocking the front door right now. Can you shut the..." My heart just stopped at that moment. My arms felt like wet noodles as I slowly backed up in a panic. The man who was standing in front of me was no person, more or less a made-up monster a child would describe to you. With a twisted smile, pitch black skin, and eyes bloodshot red, the man standing in front of me just stared at me while knocking on the door. When I realized what I was about to do, I took the keys out of the lock and swiftly retreated to the back. A few seconds passed. Knocking turned into banging, then banging turned into slamming. He was trying to get inside. I reached for my phone, preparing to call the cops. I attempted to threaten him by saying, "Bro, stop, or else I'm going to call the cops," which surprisingly worked. The sound of slamming stopped, but I couldn't be sure he was actually gone or trying to lure me into a false sense of security, so I called the cops anyway. It took a couple of minutes for them to arrive, which felt like an eternity if you were in my shoes. But eventually, when they did come and I heard sirens, I hopped out of the back. One look at the front door would cause anyone in my situation to have a heart attack. The glass was near shattered. The door itself was already somewhat broken. Maybe just one more slam from that guy would have meant the end for me. This isn't the end though. There's more. I know. Why would I go back after that experience? Look, I really wanted that bike, and no one else was hiring. I also assumed that he wouldn't come back after that. But boy, I was wrong. 2 weeks passed. I haven't heard anything from the police in a while about the situation, but I didn't care. I almost had enough money to afford my bike. And just a few more shifts, and I could leave this crappy place. This all happened a short while back, so I remember this like the back of my hand. Again, it was just a normal night. Jaden was about to clock out, and I was too. I didn't want to risk going through that experience again, so I agreed to leave earlier before Jaden. My house wasn't even that far, so I could have just sped walked and would have been home in a few minutes. While walking back, I realized that I had forgotten to tell Jaden to lock the doors. Usually I did that, so I ran back to make sure he did. It turns out he didn't, so I quickly ran inside to find the key and lock the doors. Shit, Jaden probably took the key with him without knowing, I said. I wanted to slam my head into the countertop because I'm in a McDonald's at 2 a.m. without the doors being locked. My worst fucking nightmare. And just my luck, while I was calling Jaden so he can give me the keys to lock the doors, the man was standing right outside, right behind the front doors. The doors that were not locked. He knew I was alone, and he knew the door was not locked. Fuck, I shouted. Now, I was not going to be a horror cliche, so I ran out of the back as fast as I could. Now, I'm taking track right now, so I ran pretty fast if you ask me. I heard an ear-piercing screech and the sounds of bone crackling. Was that fucker transforming? I was too busy running for my life to shit my pants or care, so I just kept running and running and running. I was sprinting until I was sure that I outran that thing, but when I took just a quick look behind me, my heart sank to my balls. He was right behind me, and he was gaining on me. I didn't have time to whine. When I saw the thing coming for me again, I went straight into nope mode. I knew where to run, the police station. That was where I would be the most safe. I didn't bother looking behind me. I didn't have to see to know that the monster was going to kill me if I ever stopped. When I made it to the police station, I decided to make sure, just this one time, that I was for sure safe. Nope. This bitch was still chasing me and was literally only a few feet away from me. I quickly ran inside, catching the attention of all the officers in there. They all looked at me like I was a crackhead. I told them my story, and they didn't believe me, obviously. But they did check out the McDonald's for my sake. The only evidence that was there were giant footprints. I was told they were big enough to crush the head of a full-grown man. How comforting. When I was told that the security camera only captured me running away and not that thing, I was somewhat pissed. No one would believe me, and the only fucking evidence there was footprints. I made sure to get on Jaden's ass after I left the police station that night. He made sure to compensate me by buying me that bike I wanted. Sure, I might need therapy for the rest of my life, but in the end, it was all worth it. I got my bike, a new traumatic experience, and I quit that shitty place. But sometimes I feel as if it's still lingering, still watching me, waiting for the right time that I let my guard down. Yeah, like that's ever gonna happen. Hey campers, it's Tails, and thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to become an official camper by subscribing to the channel. I promise, I won't let the monsters get you. So long as the campfire stays lit, that is. Keep roasting those marshmallows, campers. I'll see you next time.